Hello everyone, this is Sijas from Coding with Sijas and welcome to another brand new video. This is the 13th video in the UI5 series. If you haven't watched this series before, you can click the link above to access the entire playlist. With that, you can familiarize with the code which we are working on. Also, do consider subscribing this channel to watch more content like this. Now, I would like to take this opportunity to thank my supporters. This has been a good journey for me and as a good learning for myself. Without any further ado, let's jump into today's session. Until now, we were working on static data. We were always creating some JSON object in our project, or we were just inserting some JSON into our existing JSON model. Now, in real world, this is very rare. Mostly, you will need to get the data from a service using SOAP API or etc. Now, there is something which SAP uses very broadly, which is known as oData services. oData service is a protocol developed by Microsoft, but currently it's being also co-developed by SAP and IBM. So it's an extension of REST API. So if you haven't familiar with REST API, kindly watch some videos on the REST API. Briefly, a REST API is assigning each HTTP request to a certain action. Like GET request is associated with the read call, a POST request is associated with the create call, a PUT request or a merge request is related to update call, and delete to delete an object. So there is something called entity and entity sets in oData service. You can find the link to understand oData in the description. So without further delay, let's jump to the today's code. Here we have the code which we were working until now. So as usual, the last session's code is already moved into the archive folder and also updated in the Git. You can find the link to the Git in the description. So let me open a sample oData service. So one of the mostly used oData service for demo is called as Northwind service. So you can just type Northwind oData, which will redirect you into a Northwind service. So this is an example of a Northwind service. So this, what you see here, is called a service. And if you type $metadata, it explains about each objects. So in the previous link, you see here. So let me increase the size. I hope it is clear now. So this was the first link which we opened. And here you see there is something called categories, customer demographics, customers, employees, order details, etc. So these are how you get some custom categories. For example, I want to get some categories. All I can do is I'll just duplicate this one and say customers or categories. So once I open categories, you see I get the data in XML format, which is a little bit difficult for me to understand. So I'll type $$ format equal to JSON. So this way I can get the data in the JSON format. So you see here, now I have the data coming from backend with in a JSON object. So I have installed a plugin from Chrome called JSON Viewer Pro. I will also attach the plugin URL in the description. So that will automatically parse the data which comes in the JSON object into this format what you see. This is very easy for me to navigate. So let's see a chart for this. So you see here what I got is a response which contains results which have 7 results in it. So what does each results contain? So if I go to each results, I see category ID, category name, description, picture, etc. Now, how do I know what are the components of this particular entity? So here when you see, it just shows what is a URL to an entity. To know more about the properties and etc., you have something called metadata. So if you pass $metadata, this is what you get. So if you see here, there is something called category, which has category ID as the key parameter. You can see it is already mentioned key. And what are the other properties? You can see it over here as well. Now, if you look at the data, you can see here there is a picture which is coming in a base64 format. So how do I understand it's base64 or it's a data? So if I go to this property here, metadata, I can see picture is coming in binary, which means it is coming as a binary data. And category ID, if I look at it, it's type of string. And here, if you see, description is also type string. So let's see some other property like customer. So customer is an entity and customers is the entity set. So entity is like a uniquely identifying one object is called entity. So if you see here again, all the properties are already mentioned here. So let me go to customers now. So I select customers. I go here and all I need to do is just pass instead of categories, customers. And this is how I get the customers. So all the information is already shown here. So this is all about oData. As I mentioned, you can always go to the link in the description to understand more about oData services. Now, let's integrate this oData service into our existing UI5 application. So for that, all I need to do is go to my web app, go to my manifest JSON. As you have seen, we already have a data sources here. So I'll be adding a new data source and let me call it Northwind. Perfect. So I have a Northwind here. Now usual, I need to give the URI, a URI to the oData service. So I'll go back to my service here and I'll just choose services dot the URL to the oData service. I'll come back. I'll provide the URI. Now I need to provide some settings. So I'll provide the settings over here. So all I need to do is provide an oData version. So I just need to type oData version. So you can see oData version is v2 here. So it is 2.0. Now you can see here we are specifying something called type. So we need the same thing over here as well. We need to provide the type. So what is the type? Type is oData. Now we have Northwind data sources added, but this is only a reference. This is not used in our application yet. So to make it use, all I need to do is provide it as a part of my models. So I want this to be my default model. So I'm specifying no name and I'll specify a type here. So in this type, I'll mention the type of my model. So it's as usual, it is sap.ui.model.v2.odata model. So you can get this from the API reference. If you search for v2.odata model, you can get the exact same thing. Now you need to provide the data source. So data source is nothing but the Northwind or the name which I have given in the data source section. Northwind. Saved. Let me serve it. Served. Let me open and go to web app. And you see there won't be much of a difference in this, right? But you notice you may see an error in your console. So we have an error here. So it's not v2, it's a small letter v2. I'll just refresh. Let's see whether our models are added properly. Yeah, seems a model is fine, but there is an error. So let's see what is this error. So this is expected error. So if I search for $metadata, so since I have added an oData model in my data sources and I have connected it through my models, it will by default make an oData service call, but it is stopped with an error, which is an error called CORS error, which is like cross origin request. Okay. So what is the problem here is, this is a static page application. That means you have one index.html and you're not being redirected to any other pages. Like physically, it is being, internally the views and everything is modified, but finally you are still working on an index.html. So there is no navigation to any other pages. And how do you provide data to an application like this? We provide it using internally, it is using Ajax. So one of the principle of Ajax is that you can't make call between two domains. So what is domain here? So if you see here, this is basically one origin, which is localhost, and I'm trying to call something from services dot. If you go to the header, you can see services.odata.org, which is another domain. So this is why you get this error that you can't make an Ajax call from this particular server to that server, which is localhost to service.odata.org. So now what is the solution? The solution is something called proxy. A proxy is like, for example, like you have in your colleges, you have seen like if someone is on leave, a friend of him will give the attendance. So instead of this application acting or calling directly to the server, we have an intermediate object which will act as to the Ajax. You are calling internally the same object in the same domain, but that will be internally calling the service.odata.org. So to implement that, currently it is not possible in the serve module which we are using. So we might need to use something called UI5 tooling or UI5 CLI. So let me exit my here and I'll install a new module. So npm install -- global. So I need to install UI5 CLI. So only thing you need to type is UI5/CLI. So once you install UI5 CLI, I'm installing it globally so that I can use it anywhere. So once the installation is complete, yeah, perfect. I have my CLI installed. I can directly type UI5 --- L to know whether UI5 is installed or not. So obviously, I get some errors here where it does call UI5 CLI, but obviously there is some error in the internal module, but still it means that UI5 is installed. Okay, so I'll clear it. Now what I need to do, first thing, I need to convert this project what we have right now into a node project, because UI5 CLI works on node. So to make it a node project, all I need to do is type npm init. So once I type npm init, it will be asking few questions. So I'm just leaving everything to default. Enter. And finally, yeah, perfect. Now I have my package JSON file installed on this. Now what do I need in this? So first thing, I need to convert this into a UI5 project. So same as npm init, I need to type UI5 init. Sorry, I have some error here. So let me install UI5 again, CLI again. And ensure everything is perfect. So npm init, perfect. Now I have my UI5 initialized. So you can see there is something called UI5 YAML file, which is like a configuration for my UI5. So the name of my project UI5, which is picked up from the package JSON, and the type is application. Now let me just directly run it. So the main one of the benefit of having UI5 tooling is that you no longer need to point to a specific version of UI5. So which means that if I open index.html, here I was hard coding the application to one particular resource. So right now I have resources. So I need to write now UI5 serve instead of just serve. So once I type it, I may expect some errors. Let's see. Perfect. It didn't, no errors. I'm directly redirected to localhost 8080. So I can close it. I'm no longer using it. So this is something similar as our normal serve module. But once I open index.html, now I see I get errors. Okay, and let's fix error by error. This will give you more understanding what each line does. Perfect. So now you see here, it's not able to load sap.core.ui.core, which means that it does not have a UI5 library. So all I need to do is UI5 use SAP UI5. So once I type it, it will internally add an SAP UI5 library into my spec file, or sorry, YAML file. If I go to my YAML file, you see here, this framework is using 1.98.0. So what if I want to use a specific version? I can always type UI5, SAP UI5 at 1.78. So once I do it, you can see now my version is updated to 1.78. So I'm using the latest version. So I just type SAP use SAP UI5. I'll use the latest UI5 version. Now let me refresh. Let me go back and do a UI5 serve. I'm serving it. It's loaded. Perfect. Now I'm running it. So the error for SAP core.js. Okay, 1 second. Now UI5 is loaded. UI5 perfectly will be loaded, but it does not know to use any module. So you remember, like in index.html, we have specified it need to use a default library. Okay, maybe in the manifest we have now. So in the manifest we have specified it need to use some libraries, some dependencies and all we have mentioned. Yeah, here SAP SAP core. But similarly, we also need the same thing in the UI5 CLI, because it need to know which are the libraries to be loaded. So all you need to type is UI5 add sap.m. Press enter. Let me go to my YAML file. You see here, now I have SAP.m library. I also need sap.ui.core, because that is the core library. So I add that as well. So now SAP serve, UI5 serve. Now it is installing all the required library. So with that, let me refresh. Now no errors there, but you will see that yeah, see here, there is CSS is not there. It just loads like a dummy data. What's the reason? The reason is we haven't installed a theme yet. So let me close it. I'll come back. Same thing as we have done here, but now we need to add a theme. So it's called theme underscore SAP underscore Belize. It's theme lib, I believe. Theme lib SAP underscore Belize. Perfect. Let's, yeah, I refresh. Obviously it's gonna fail because I haven't started the server. So let me do UI5 serve. Now this will start the server. I'm installing SAP 1.98. All good, and I'm refreshing this page. Now we still have the Northwind error because we haven't fixed it yet, but you get the idea. Now it's loading our UI5 library properly. You can see everything is working as before. There's no change. Now I have to start using the oData model. So we get this error, right? So now how I will be proxying it. So for that, now I can close all these tabs, which was no more relevant. Perfect. Now I'll go back to my application. I'll close it. And I need to install some middlewares. So how to install first a middleware. So let me just install a middleware for proxy. So the middleware which I'm going to install is called as UI5 middleware simple proxy. So we need to write, it's an npm module. So npm install this one and minus save minus save dev, which is to make sure that this application is installed in a package JSON. So in the package JSON, I should get that it's installed. Right? So I have the dependency loaded here, but as I mentioned, this is a UI5 dependency. So apart from it being loaded by npm, UI5 also need to know this dependency is loaded. So all you need to do is type UI5 as a new property in that package JSON, and in that we need to mention dependencies. Here dependency is an array, so I just need to mention the UI5 middleware proxy. Bus. With this, this dependency will be able to use by UI5 framework. Now, what is next? Obviously, now it's the application which need to proxy it, right? So we need to add some certain conditions in a YAML file. So what are those? So here, now these are the configurations for the framework, right? So now we need to provide some configuration for the server. So just type server, come down. Now in the server, we are writing some configurations. So what is this configuration? It's called a custom middleware. So custom middleware. So we have a custom middleware. So we have added a middleware, SAP middleware property. Now we need to mention what is the name of the middleware. So the name of the middleware is name UI5 middleware proxy. Now what are the additional configurations? We need to provide something called mount path, which is like telling that from where, if this path is detected, how it need to react. So I'm creating something called Northwind service /v2 /northwind /northwind svc. If this is detected, it need to redirect to a different location. So if there is any with respect to localhost 8080 /northwind service /v2 if this is occurred, now it need to redirect it. You have to provide another property called after middleware. So after middleware, so we need compression. Then we have to provide the configuration. So configuration. So what is the configuration? The configuration is the base URI. So if this particular path is detected, how it need to react. So that is where we have to say that if that path is detected, it should be treated as this, the entire URL, right? So this is what we do. So here you specify if this is detected, it means it is this. Perfect. Now let's modify our manifest JSON. So instead of it going to this one, we will provide it as Northwind service. So with all these changes, let's open UI5 serve. Perfect. Now it's open. I'll go and refresh and let's see whether our metadata is failing now or not. So I'm reloading the application and I do have a metadata over here, and that should act as proxy. Now what we're doing is we are proxying our application with using a different prefix called Northwind service, and our manifest will be scanning for it. 1 second, we are getting an error. I'll just open in a new tab. Cannot get Northwind service v2 metadata. Let me go back to our configurations. So Northwind service /v2 /northwind service, that's what we have here. And in my package JSON, yeah, this is what I have here. And what do I have in the YAML file? Yeah, there's a slight difference, so I'll just copy that. Exact same thing I'll copy. I'll go back to my YAML file. Yeah, I'll just make it exact same. Now with this, let me start the UI5 server again. It's loaded. So let me go back to my tab and let me refresh this. And we see whether, now you see here with that change, instead of calling with service.odata.org, we are calling it with localhost 8080 Northwind service, and everything is fine here. So if I go here and refresh, my service should load fine. I should see $metadata right then and there. Perfect. Now let's see whether the metadata call has gone ahead. See here, now you can see the metadata call is successful. So we have the metadata call in the app, which seems perfect, right? Now let's go and integrate remaining things. So here we have seen how the integration happened. I'll close everything, close all. I'll go back to my fragment. I have employee table. So now I'm not loading from employee anymore. I load employee from my Northwind service, right? Northwind, yeah. I'll go to Northwind's service and I load employees. So let me just open the metadata and let me scroll down to employee, and here I have all the details. So I'm not loading from here anymore. I'm loading from direct model employees. And let's refresh. So before refreshing, let me add so few properties. Instead of name, I'll be adding okay, let the name be there, and I need something a new column for employee ID. So let me just copy this. Employee ID. So employee ID is nothing but this one. So I'll create a new text. This text equal to binding. Since I'm using default model, I need not to specify any path. Now first name, last name, same here. No more employee model or anything. Just specify relative path, first name, and a relative path for last name. I don't think there is age in this, so let me add a property for city. So instead of age, I'll have city. Directly I'll bring the city over here, and maybe for some kind of notes, I'll provide a notes. So I don't need this state or anything anymore, so I'll just remove that, and instead I'll add a new text property to show notes. Notes. Perfect. Now let me just go ahead and refresh the app. No data there, so let's remove this and let's see what happened. So we are making a call to Northwind service. I'll just type Northwind. All right. It didn't make any call. Let's see why the calls are not made. We are mentioned employees. So item binding is already done to employee model. One reason being is we do have a model with a default model here. So let me just remove all these things. I don't need this M data. Nothing like this is relevant anymore. None of it is relevant because I18N I'm not using it anywhere. I'm not using the bundle, so I'll just remove all these default model names from here. So all gone. So in my init, all I need is this one. Save it. And yeah, I have to shut the server and reopen again. Yeah, started. Let me refresh it. I think that may be the reason why it was not loading, because there is a conflict between the default models. And to ensure that that's not working, we may give a name. If this doesn't work, we will give a name model. So metadata is in pending. Yeah, now it makes a Northwind call. You can see it is trying to load service, and you have your service over here. So you see here, by default it just loaded only 9 items. So we have to make sure that it leads more items on table scroll. So we'll just need to ensure that growing is enabled. So table should grow. Still in pending. Perfect. So we have 9 items. I think we'd have only 9 items until now. So just see whether We have more than that. So how do you know whether it has more than that? It's simple. We just need to add and dollar count equal to or just provide dollar inline count. So inline count, and it need to count all pages. So basically we just say how many items are there. Let's see with this it comes up or it doesn't come. So I'll just pass dollar count to get the total count. It's only 9 items, so that is why we don't get it. It's no more than 9 items we have even in the service level. So that's how you do oData binding. Right now we had some filters, so how we will see how whether filter works or not. So for that we have to make some adjustments. The first thing is, let me go to the controller landing page. We are creating all these filters over here, but we were giving first name like this, right? So we have to provide the proper property. So I'll go here, I'll choose first name and last name. So it is the capital first and capital last name. So first name, similarly it is last name. I've done both properties. I'll come back here and I'll refresh it. I'll open inspect element in case, developer mode, in case we need to see whether the calls are going right or wrong. So see here, there is a Northwind call which is going to the backend, and we are getting this result from here. Perfect. Now you get this. I'll clear this, and all I need to type is I need to say whether anything with Nancy is there. So I'll just type NANC and click on search. So there is a batch call which is going to backend. You can see the call. How does it look? If you look at the payload, you see that the call is going as $employees, $count. Here we are skipping top and see filter substring of Nancy in first name or substring of Nancy in last name. So this is how even your filter works by default. And maybe we need to adjust few other things, like in the employee table we have provided, in the employee settings we have provided some keys. So just update maybe something like last name. So this was first name, right? So first name and last name. What was the other one? City, right? So city and city. Perfect. So these are my keys. So I'll sort it and maybe I'll group it based on city. So I'll just provide city and city. We'll save it. I'll come here, I'll refresh it. So we have our app loaded. I'll close it, I'll clear it, and let me click on the settings. Yeah, I want in the ascending of first name. So I'll just click on first name and click OK. So that should make a call to backend with my sorting conditions. So now it is sorted with alphabetical order. So now it is first name ascending, and similarly I want to group it. So I'll go to group and I'll choose city and I'll click OK, and let's see whether any other item is belonging to same city. So, or it will be like since there are multiple cities, we will be having multiple groups. So you see here, Kirkland, one employee belongs to Kirkland, and there are few other employees who belongs to London, and one employee from Redmond, and 2 employees from Seattle, and 1 employee from Tacoma. So I think that's about integrating oData service. So let's summarize it for today. So we have seen how to add an oData service into our existing application, and due to the CORS policy, we will not be able to serve using the serve module. We need to introduce a proxy. So for that, we have installed UI5 CLI and instantiated a UI5 project. Now using npm init, we have created a package JSON, and using UI5 init, we have initialized the UI5 YAML file. And for application to work smoothly, we need to mention SAP UI5 version. We have used UI5 space use SAP UI5 to add a UI5 library into our existing project. And using UI5 add, we have added the libraries which we're using. Example, SAPM, SAP UI Core, and we need the library which we need the theme also. So we have added theme lib underscore SAP underscore Belize theme, which will ensure that the theme is installed. And we needed a proxy. So we have installed a middleware called UI5 middleware simple proxy. And we have seen how to configure the proxy in our existing YAML file. Now, with the changes in the YAML file and some additional changes in the manifest, we were able to successfully proxy the call to the Northwind service. And after that, we have changed something in the employee table to adapt our new incoming service. So instead of using the employee data, local data, we were consuming oData service, and we directly bound the employees into our existing table. And also we made some changes in our binding in the column list item to adapt new properties. Now, just by doing some similar changes in the view setting dialog, we were able to achieve filter, also sorting and grouping. I hope this video is clear. This is a very important topic because mostly we will be dealing with oData services in UI5 or Fiori projects. So with this, let me wind up for today. And if you have any questions, kindly ask in the comments. I have seen a few other questions also in the previous videos, and I took my time and responded to each and every messages. So thanks for that. Thanks for asking those questions. If this is really helpful for you, drop a like. Also, if this is not something which you are looking forward, or if I need to improve something, you can drop a dislike, but also mention that in the comments, like what need to be improved. Just a dislike will not help me to understand how I need to improve it. So thank you guys. Thank you for watching the videos. And if you haven't already subscribed this channel, you can always click on the subscribe icon in the end credits. And you can also play the entire playlist also using the playlist link which you have seen here. See you guys in the next video. Bye.